Hey everyone, today I'm going to be doing a video on the upper you see before you here today. Now I've been using this thing for quite a while. I have well over 1,000 rounds through this thing finally, so it feels appropriate for me to do my review. And if you didn't already know by the title of the video, this is a piston upper from PWS. Now, PWS has a couple different lines of piston guns. They kind of have their premium series, like the Mark IIs, and then they have their like 111 and 116 Pros, and this is from the Pro line. So this is an 11.85 inch Pro line upper that I bought complete, and I guess just for full disclosure, I did buy this. I bought this through the store I work, so didn't pay full retail price, but I had no conversations with PWS about buying this. It was all straight up my own money. But that being said, I do have a relationship with PWS as a company. They have sent me products to review before. But again, this thing, along with the ammo to run through it, came directly from my pocket and the support I get over on Patreon. So with that out of the way, let's kind of dig into what this thing is, how it works, and what my thoughts are on it. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot going on this upper now that is not quite how it would come out of the box. So it's going to be hard to demonstrate visually on this one, but I'll try to roll in pictures as best I can when appropriate to describe what's going on here. Like I said, this is an 11.85 inch upper, and this uses the long stroke gas piston that PWS has really, I think, revolutionized and idealized for use in AR-15s. Now, the long stroke gas piston comes with some benefits as well as some drawbacks, as we'll be getting into, but just to run over like what it is feature-wise, the upper in this case, again in the Pro line, does not have a forward assist. We do have a shell deflector still. Normally it'll come with a Radian charging handle, which are excellent charging handles. I did swap it out to a Geisley just to get a little bit better of a gas seal to reduce gas to the face even more. The upper and handguard are kind of paired together in a way that you can't really change out your handguard, at least not easily with a product outside of PWS. Which realistically is fine because you do have a full-length M-LOK handguard here with M-LOK in the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock positions. Would it be nice to get some extra positions? Maybe. But because of the way the piston system works, as with most piston systems, it is going to be a proprietary handguard. But the handguard that comes with it, I think, is sufficient. Now, under where this pursed 3 is here, which is my IR laser and illuminator, you may be able to see in there. If not, again, I'll roll in some pictures. We have a 3-position gas adjustment knob there. So we have at least, like what it's supposed to be is 1 unsuppressed position and 2 suppressed positions based on how you kind of work out the buffer weights and everything else like that. You can kind of play around with that to maybe 2 unsuppressed positions and 1 suppressed, or 3 different levels of suppressed settings. But at least the way it's intended out of the box is 1 unsuppressed position and then 2 suppressed positions. Now, one of the things that I think makes the PWS piston system really special is the way that it actually vents the gas from the gas tube. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is take the upper off just so we can talk about it a little bit less in the abstract and actually show you guys what's going on here. And because I know there are people who like to overcomplicate how difficult or easy it is to get the bolt carrier group out, I'm going to go ahead and just do it on camera here so you guys can see. My rear takedown pin on this gun is a little tight. and for what it's worth, the lower that I used in the majority of the shooting footage you're going to see is different. Well, I've used actually a couple lowers with this upper, but it's different than what I have on there now. I did purchase, again, with my own money, the Mark II ambi lower from PWS, just because I figured that would go well with this, and I was looking for another lower to SBR. As you can see from the configuration, I haven't done that yet, but it's something I'll do. But to go ahead and remove this, I'm going to go ahead and open the charging handle up. We're going to just pull back on the carrier till it drops out, and then it's really legitimately that simple. Some people make it look like a giant nightmare, but once you do it like literally 2 or 3 times, it's pretty intuitive. So I'm going to put this guy down. So we have our long stroke gas piston. We have a little knuckle here, which then would allow us to remove our charging handle. That would just allow that to slide off just like that. So you can use any mil-spec compatible charging handle. Again, in this case, I have the Geisley. Now my hands are nice and dirty. But you have gas being tapped up through the gas block. It pushes on the piston here, and then unlike some piston guns, like the first time I ever shot a piston gun, I don't recall what brand it was based on the description of how it went. Some of you may already know though. But I had my hand up near the gas block, and it felt almost like something exploded in my hand. Like I just felt a sensation that I wasn't expecting to feel. It was basically the gas venting out from up by the gas block and impacting my hand. Now it wasn't painful, but it was startling given that I wasn't expecting something like that to happen in my hands. So what this thing does differently is as that gas is pushing the piston back, there's 3 holes in the gas tube, and the excess gas is vented down onto the top of the barrel. So it's not impacting your hands at all. I have never at least felt any sensation from that gas coming out onto the barrel. So nothing crazy going on. Some of the guns out there, you'll see people have to like fabric wrap up there just to prevent that from happening. But again, with a PWS system, that has not been a problem that I've run into. Now, I'll go ahead and pull this thing off just because we're already here. We might as well talk about the bolt carrier a little bit more. So given that this thing is a piston gun, we do not have gas rings. So the bolt itself is spring loaded, just because, again, there's no need for gas rings when you don't have gas expanding inside the carrier. Now, because of that, there is a modification that I have done with all my PWS guns and that I recommend other people do with theirs. And I have a lot of PWS products in my circle of friends. I have this one. A friend of mine has the exact same upper. My manager has a 16-inch PWS. My gunsmith that used to work with us and now has his own shop has his own PWS. We have a lot, and one of my other coworkers has a 308 PWS. We have a lot of PWSs in our circle. And one thing we have all done is changed out the cam pin from the standard mil-spec cam pin to one of the POF roller cam pins. Now, the reason for that is something that I noticed, and I believe I mentioned when I did my 16-inch PWS video, because there's no, or at least there's not much resistance on the spring-loaded bolt here, as the round tries to feed out of the top of the magazine, it puts friction on the bolt, which then wants it to compress into the carrier, which then causes the cam pin to roll over and then scrape along the inside of the upper and can actually gouge out a significant amount of material. By transitioning to the roller cam pin, that issue is alleviated altogether. It just works perfectly. That I literally did that modification on this upper, having already experienced that before firing any rounds. Again, over 1,000 rounds later, no issues whatsoever and no gouging going on inside my upper. If you want to see more on that, check out the 16-inch video, PWS Pro that I did, because I go a little bit more in depth into it there. Other than that though, there's nothing too like crazy going on with the carrier. I really do like the staking they do for what would be the gas key, just so that those screws don't come loose. And then you do have a little bit of swelling going on at the tail of the carrier, which helps to prevent carrier tilt or anything like that. And then for any of you who are curious, it still does have a full auto cut. So if you wanted to run this on a full auto lower, transferable lower, or anything like that, post sample lower, this should run just fine. Or with certain trigger systems out there that require that, that is also a thing. You do also have abbreviated serration sections here, and not really coming into play on at least the Pro line, because again, you don't have a forward assist, but that's just a-okay with me. So let's go ahead and throw this back in the upper and continue on with that. Now, the easiest way in my experience to reassemble the upper is to kind of hold everything upside down, let gravity be my friend, guide the piston into its little slot there, move the charging handle in until that's able to drop into its recess. This thing is really dirty. I should probably clean it before I put this thing away, and then just push the whole thing back in. Now again, because the bolt doesn't have as much resistance, the bolt does kind of want to just flop around on its own. So I'll typically close the dust cover just to make it have a little bit more resistance so that the carrier doesn't want to tip out. Because if I don't have that, if I move the carrier upside down, that bolt wants to drop out. So I'll just close the dust cover. And now let's go ahead and get this thing back together. All right, so to continue moving on forward here, as I already mentioned, I have a Purst 3 on top, and I also have a Surefire 640 dual fuel just to pair up as a white light. I did do some rewiring on a Surefire dual pad so that I could run both of them off the same pressure pad, which is super cool. Not going to make a tutorial video because there are videos already out there on YouTube, but if I can do it, I think pretty much anyone else can, as long as you're not a complete idiot. So maybe not everyone else can, but most of you, I'm sure, are capable of doing it. Now, the hand guards from PWS, if I did have one critique, it's that they don't come with any QD mounting options, and because of the way the barrel nut works, the M-LOK starts pretty far forward, so I used one of these Midwest Industries kind of almost like a cantilever QD mount, just to be able to get that QD socket a little bit further back, and that's been working well for me with this Grove Tack sling. I need to do a video on this sling. I've been using this since I started using this kind of complete build, and I've been really enjoying it. Grove Tack, I don't feel like gets the attention they deserve because they do make some really cool things. It works in a different way than most other slings work. Maybe I'll just have to do a video in the future. Now again, continuing forward, I just threw a fixed Midwest Industries night vision front sight up there so it can allow my laser to pass through clearly. I do have my laser mounted a little bit further back just so I can still get access to that adjustment knob in case I am running unsuppressed, or if something's going on where I need to change the gas setting. It allows me to have access there. I've definitely toyed with the idea of just moving it forward and saying, F it, leave it in the same spot, because if I'm using this, it's going to be suppressed. As a man, I'm afraid of commitment, and I don't know if I'm ready to take that step. And then last but not least, as we move forward here, the muzzle device that would normally come with this, move this sound away from the mic, would be an A2 bird cage. Honestly, they work well enough, and I probably would have kept it on there if it wasn't for needing to mount a silencer. So I have a YHM mini flash hider so that I can attach my Turbo K. The vast majority of shooting I've done with this upper has been suppressed with this Turbo K, and wanting to have a almost dedicated suppressor host is one of the reasons that I decided to go with a PWS piston gun. So to kind of elaborate more on, again, why I chose this upper, previous to this one, I had a 10.5-inch Midwest Industries upper. It worked perfectly fine. It ran really, really well once some of the issues got sorted out early on. But running it as a dedicated suppressor host, it got dirty really, really quick. And I found some of the reliability starting to fade, you know, only, well, like 500, 600, 700 rounds into it, I would start having more regular malfunctions. And so I wanted to go to a piston gun just to try to keep things a little bit cleaner. As you saw when I took it apart, this thing is still pretty dirty, but that's because I've gone a really long time without cleaning this thing, and again, running it almost exclusively suppressed. But this thing has been exceptionally reliable. Once I got my gas settings tuned in, I have had 0 malfunctions with this thing. But to kind of articulate some of the issues I saw getting the gas system dialed in, basically I was running an H2 buffer, and I was trying to run it on the all the way closed setting, so, or as closed as it can get setting, the number 3 setting, or the second suppressed position. And most of the time it ran fine, but for some reason, if I really locked down on the gun to try to control recoil, the gun would not be able to fully cycle. Basically, I would get a failure to feed where it just didn't have enough oomph to get the case into the chamber, or the whole loaded cartridge into the chamber. So I was then running it on the number 2 setting, and it was fine, but I knew I was getting more gas than the gun really needed to be able to cycle appropriately. What I decided to do to fix that was I went from an H2 buffer to a carbine buffer, so reduce the weight of the carbine, or reduce the weight of the buffer, and then that allowed me to now run it on the 3rd position gas setting, which now again gets me enough gas to cycle reliably without getting a ton of gas still in the face, but also making sure that it is still 100% reliable with any of the ammo that I'm going to use. Now, just to elaborate there as well, contrary to popular belief, just because you have a piston gun does not eliminate the potential gas issues. You're still going to get some gas back, but there are other mitigating things you can do, like again, the Geisley charging handles I personally find to be better for that, and then trying to match it with an appropriate lower that's going to have a nice tight fit so you have smaller gaps. As you know from the video I did about the 17 Design folding lower that I think I only posted that to Instagram though. But basically I just had a huge hole where that folding knuckle was, and it caused me to get gas straight in the face, super unpleasant. Switch to this PWS lower, and it is working just fine. Now I know people are going to wonder about the accuracy, so let me touch on that really quick. Now, obviously the intended use, in my opinion, of a, for all intents and purposes, 12-inch barrel is not as a designated marksman, but accuracy is still an important thing, and something that I want to be good enough that I don't notice it, and that is definitely the case with this gun and with my experience with PWS as a whole with their barrels. Is the accuracy is good enough that I don't consciously have to think about it. I point it at what I want to hit, and it does well enough. Now, to quantify that a little bit better, when I have shot this thing for groups at 100 yards, I'm consistently getting, with kind of the more basic frontier ammo that I typically shoot, right around 1 1/4 to 1.5 inch groups. If I'm running magnification, if I'm running just a red dot, I'm consistently getting 2 MOA or better, which for what I'm going to be using this gun for, that is perfectly acceptable in my mind. And again, if I'm using appropriate ammo and a magnified optic and really taking my time, I'm sure I could probably squeeze sub MOA groups out of this thing, because I've definitely been able to do that with my other PWS guns when attempting that. Now, if you haven't seen it, I did do a video with Brittany over at PWS where I actually got a chance to tour the facility over there. And after actually seeing the fact that almost everything is made in-house, or at least finished in-house, it's really no surprise that this thing performs as well as it does. The level of attention to detail and the ability for them to really push the envelope of the nitty-gritty details on their quality assurance front was really impressive. And again, the testament to that is in the quality that you get out of their products. I've yet to be disappointed so far, again, with the exception of that cam pin thing. But I think that's something they recognize. And again, as long as you just throw that part in there, which there's no other modification you need to do, it literally just drops right in, you're going to be just fine with this thing. Now, obviously, we've talked about a lot of good things, so I want to again touch on some of the potential drawbacks you might run into with this thing. So again, if you like mounting stuff further forward, you are not going to be able to adjust your gas system. For example, my friend that had the exact same upper, he was running a D-Ball D2 up front, and he decided he was going to cover it up, but then that also made it so that effectively we couldn't adjust his gas setting anymore. Again, if it's always going to be in the same configuration, maybe that's not the end of the world, but I do foresee myself taking classes with this thing where I'm probably going to run it without a can, and I want to be able to adjust accordingly to that. Some people really do love their forward assists. Again, I just haven't seen it to be an issue on this upper, but if you want a forward assist, just get their Premier line, because that is an option on there. And they do make the same barrel length and everything in that kind of Premier line as well. If you're like me and you don't want to spend a ton of money, then again, I think it's just fine without it. Again, I do wish that there was a QD slot on the back of the handguards here, because there is just a lot of flat area that I think could otherwise be utilized for that. Again, not the end of the world, and it would be cool to see 8 positions of M-LOK instead of just the 3 positions. Again, I can obviously get mounted to it everything I want, so again, not a huge deal there. And then really the only other drawback that I can think of is anytime you go with any piston system, just the more limited ability to get aftermarket parts. Like if I were to break something in the bolt, I can't just run into my local gun store or where I work and get replacement parts. I have to get them specifically from PWS. But again, at least at this point, that has not been a problem to rear its head so far. So again, with well over 1,000 rounds through this thing and a lot more to go, and using this thing as a night vision kind of setup host, this thing has just been exceptionally good at what it does. And it, like I said, the whole goal when you're using something like this is to not even notice it's there. You just have a task in mind, you perform the task, and hopefully the gun performs its job so well that you're not having to constantly think about it. And that is something that this thing does, all at a really, really reasonable price point. Again, if you go with the Pro line, these things are well under $1,000. Now, obviously price is going to vary drastically depending on where you find it and when you find it. But you can put together a complete AR or even buy the complete pistol guns themselves, again, around 1,000 or potentially less, and at least pre-COVID it was less, and you have a really, really awesome gun. Again, if you want some of those finer features or the forward assist, they have those options as well. But for me, this thing is just doing its job exceptionally well, and I couldn't be more happy with it. And you guys can see the pervasiveness of other PWS parts that have found its way into my collection with their whole receiver extension component pieces with their ratcheting end plate and castle nut, and their enhanced receiver extension. And then again, me investing in getting their ambi lower, just in case I'm running it lefty, I can still work everything I want to, or more importantly, be able to drop the bolt if it's locked open on the right side without having to change my hand positions at all. So anyway, if you have any experience with PWS products, definitely let me know. This is obviously a sample size of 1. However, again, I do have friends with the literally exact same upper receiver, as well as other PWS products out there to draw experience from. But please let me know what your experience has been, good or bad, so that people reading the comments can get as diverse of an experience set as possible and bring more benefit to this video. I do want to say thanks to my patrons for helping to make a video like this one possible. Obviously, since I've started using this, ammo has not gotten any easier to get, so their contributions over there have definitely aided in my ability to bring you guys this video and continue to bring you guys more and more content. So if you want to support the channel or help bring content like this to the channel, definitely head over to my Patreon. The links will be in the description box for that. If you haven't been checking out PWS's product line, you owe it to yourself to fix that and see what they got going on, because it is legitimately impressive, and I'm very happy that I spent my money on this and not something else. But if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, throw that in the comment section down below. Try to get back to you as quick as I can. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching.